The human body is a weird, temperamental hunk of meat that somehow keeps us alive despite our best efforts. It fights off infections, heals wounds, and in some cases, lets us eat an entire pizza in one sitting without immediate consequences. But every once in a while it just glitches out, and when that happens, even doctors are left scratching their heads saying, "Yeah, we have no idea what's going on here." Take exploding head syndrome, for example. Sounds terrifying, right? Like your skull might detonate at any moment. In reality, it's a sleep disorder where people hear loud explosion-like sounds in their head as they're drifting off. No actual harm, just a free jump scare before bedtime. Then there's foreign accent syndrome, where people wake up from a stroke suddenly sounding like they're auditioning for a BBC drama. And let's not forget autobrewery syndrome, a condition where your gut turns into a full-on distillery, making you drunk without drinking. Imagine trying to explain that to a cop after getting pulled over. Exploding head syndrome. You're lying in bed, about to drift off into sweet unconsciousness, when suddenly, boom. It sounds like a gunshot, a firework, or someone dropping a metal trash can down a flight of stairs. You jolt awake, heart racing, but there's nothing there. No explosion, no intruder, just your brain having a completely unnecessary meltdown. Congratulations, you might have exploding head syndrome. Despite the name, this condition does not involve actual head explosions, unfortunately for the people you find annoying. Instead, it's a sleep disorder where people hear loud, non-existent noises as they're falling asleep or waking up. It's not linked to any physical damage, and it doesn't seem to cause lasting harm, but it's enough to make you question your sanity. So, what's causing it? That's where things get murky. Scientists suspect it has something to do with the brainstem misfiring as it shuts down for sleep, kind of like a computer glitching right before it powers off. Others believe it's related to mini seizures in the auditory cortex or a sudden surge of neural activity, similar to a misfiring circuit. But here's the fun part. There's no solid consensus on why it happens, and no known cure. You just have to live with the fact that your brain occasionally decides to scare the hell out of you for no reason. The condition is more common in women and high-stress individuals, leading some experts to believe it could be linked to anxiety and sleep deprivation. Basically, if your brain is already running on fumes, it might just panic and throw in a random explosion for good measure. The good news? It's harmless. The bad news? It's incredibly annoying. Imagine explaining to your doctor, "Yeah, my head explodes when I try to sleep," and watching them stare at you like you just confessed to being a lizard person. Most doctors don't even know what to do with this information, so treatment usually consists of reassurance, better sleep hygiene, and sometimes anti-seizure meds if it's really bad. Foreign accent syndrome. Imagine waking up one day, going to order your usual coffee, and suddenly realizing you sound like you just stepped off a plane from London, or France, or China. Despite never having been there, never studying the language, and having exactly zero reason for this to be happening. Welcome to foreign accent syndrome, FAS, one of the strangest neurological conditions known to science. FAS occurs when brain damage, usually from a stroke, head trauma, or even severe migraines, messes with the way a person produces speech. The result? Their normal voice suddenly adopts foreign-sounding patterns, intonations, and rhythms, making it seem like they've acquired an accent overnight. The catch? They're not actually speaking a new language or even pronouncing words correctly for that accent. It just sounds like they are. Doctors first documented the condition in 1907, and since then, fewer than 100 confirmed cases have been recorded. One of the most famous involved a British woman who, after a stroke, developed what sounded like a French accent. She had never lived in France, never studied French, and yet, suddenly, she was speaking English as if she were auditioning for Les Miserables. So what's happening here? Well, speech production is a delicate process, involving multiple areas of the brain working together to control tone, rhythm, and articulation. When a brain injury disrupts those areas, it can cause subtle distortions in muscle movement. These distortions don't create a real foreign accent, but instead alter speech in a way that resembles one. It's like your vocal cords suddenly decided to go rogue and improvise a new personality. Interestingly, women are more likely to develop FAS than men, though no one really knows why. Some researchers think it might have to do with differences in brain plasticity, or how speech patterns are processed between genders. Others believe it's just because women are more likely to report symptoms. The weirdest part? Some cases of FAS have no clear cause, no brain injury, no stroke, just someone waking up one day with an accent they never had. A few people have even developed multiple accents over time, switching between them like a broken radio dial. Drunk without drinking. Imagine you're being pulled over for a DUI. The breathalyzer shows you're wasted, but you haven't had a single drink. Congratulations, you might have autobrewery syndrome. a rare condition where your body literally brews its own alcohol, turning you into an unintentional human distillery. This bizarre phenomenon happens when gut bacteria or yeast ferment carbohydrates into ethanol inside your digestive system. Essentially, every time you eat a carb-heavy meal, bread, pasta, fruit, your gut microbes throw a party and start brewing beer. The result? You get drunk off your own metabolism. Scientists think the condition is caused by an overgrowth of certain yeast, like Saccharomyces cerevisiae, the same stuff used in baking and brewing. In a normal gut, yeast exists in small amounts, but when it overgrows, due to antibiotics, diet changes, or a weakened immune system, it hijacks digestion and starts producing high levels of alcohol. Symptoms range from mild brain fog and dizziness to full-blown slurred speech, poor coordination, and blackouts. Some people with severe cases have woken up legally intoxicated despite never touching alcohol. Interestingly, men and women experience this condition differently. Women are more vulnerable because they naturally produce less alcohol dehydrogenase, the enzyme that breaks down alcohol. This means even tiny amounts of ethanol in the gut can hit women harder than men. Diagnosis is tricky since most doctors don't immediately think, "Ah yes, your gut is a brewery." Many people go undiagnosed for years, often accused of being secret alcoholics. Some even lose jobs or face legal trouble before finally getting tested. The gold standard test? A controlled carbohydrate challenge, where doctors feed you carbs and monitor your blood alcohol levels over time. Treatment usually involves antifungal medications to kill off excess yeast, plus a strict low-carb diet to starve the remaining microbes. Some severe cases require complete gut microbiome transplants. But even then, relapses can happen, meaning some people have to permanently avoid carbs unless they want to risk getting buzzed off a sandwich. Dying in your sleep for no reason. A healthy person goes to bed feeling fine and never wakes up. No illness, no warning signs, just sudden death in the middle of the night. This is sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome, SUNS, a condition that has baffled doctors for decades. SUNS is most common in young men of Southeast Asian descent, particularly among Hmong, Filipino, and Thai populations. In some regions, it is one of the leading causes of death in otherwise healthy young adults. The condition became widely known in the US in the 1980s, when dozens of Hmong refugees died in their sleep without any clear medical explanation. Many cases of SUNS are linked to Brugada syndrome, a genetic heart condition that disrupts the electrical signals controlling heartbeat rhythm. People with Brugada syndrome can go into sudden, fatal arrhythmias, often triggered during sleep. However, not all SUNS victims have Brugada mutations, which means other causes may be at play. Some researchers suspect abnormal nervous system activity, where the body fails to regulate heart function properly during deep sleep. Others point to respiratory issues, like undetected apnea or oxygen deprivation. Psychological stress may also contribute, as many reported cases involve individuals under intense pressure, fear, or trauma before death. Cultural beliefs complicate the mystery. In many Southeast Asian communities, deaths from SUNS are linked to folklore about malevolent spirits attacking people in their sleep. Victims often report terrifying nightmares or sensations of being paralyzed before they die, leading some to believe that stress or fear-induced cardiac events could be a factor. Men are far more likely to be affected than women. Testosterone may play a role, as it influences electrical activity in the heart. Women with similar genetic markers for Brugada syndrome tend to have fewer symptoms and lower death rates. When your body turns to bone, a bruise heals, a cut scabs over, and a broken bone eventually repairs itself. But for people with fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, FOP, even the smallest injury triggers something far worse. Their muscles, tendons, and ligaments start turning into bone. FOP is one of the rarest genetic disorders known to science, affecting about 1 in 2 million people. It is caused by a mutation in the ACVR1 gene, which regulates bone growth. In FOP patients, this gene malfunctions, causing soft tissues to ossify, turn into bone, when damaged. Over time, this leads to a second skeleton forming inside the body, locking joints in place and making movement impossible. The disease usually appears in childhood. One of the first signs is malformed toes at birth, a strange but consistent indicator of the condition. As children grow, flare-ups occur, often after minor injuries or even routine medical procedures like vaccinations. Each flare-up adds more bone, restricting movement permanently. By early adulthood, most patients are unable to walk or move their arms freely. Men and women develop FOP at similar rates, but progression can vary. Some research suggests that hormonal differences might influence flare-ups, with puberty and pregnancy sometimes accelerating the disease in women. However, since FOP is so rare, data on gender differences remains limited. There is no cure, and surgery to remove extra bone only makes things worse. The body reacts by producing even more bone. Current treatments focus on reducing inflammation and avoiding injuries at all costs. Experimental drugs targeting the faulty ACVR1 gene are in development, but nothing has been proven to stop the disease entirely. FOP is a brutal condition, slowly imprisoning its victims inside their own skeletons. Most people with it lose all mobility by their 30s and eventually face severe breathing complications as bone growth restricts their ribcage. Despite its terrifying nature, FOP remains one of the least studied genetic disorders, with limited research due to its extreme rarity. The case of the Morgellons mystery. Some people report strange fibers emerging from their skin, crawling sensations under the surface, and unhealing sores. They describe feeling infested by something unknown, but when doctors examine them, there's nothing there. This is Morgellons disease, one of the most controversial medical mysteries to date. Patients with Morgellons often complain of itching, burning, and lesions that won't heal. They insist that small fibers, black specks, or even crystalline structures come out of their skin. Many go to multiple doctors, only to be told the condition is psychological, often labeled as delusional parasitosis, a disorder where people falsely believe they are infested with parasites. The scientific community remains divided on Morgellons. Some studies suggest that the fibers patients describe are environmental contaminants, clothing fibers, or keratin strands from their own body. Others have found potential links between Morgellons and chronic bacterial infections, particularly Borrelia burgdorferi, the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. Some researchers believe that persistent Lyme infections may trigger an immune response that leads to skin abnormalities. Women are diagnosed with Morgellons far more often than men, which could be due to differences in immune function, hormone regulation, or simply because women are more likely to seek medical attention for unexplained symptoms. Some cases appear alongside chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, conditions that also disproportionately affect women. There is no official treatment for Morgellons. Many patients are prescribed antipsychotic medications, which sometimes reduce symptoms, but this fuels frustration among sufferers who believe their condition is physical, not mental. Those who pursue antibiotics for suspected bacterial infections report mixed results, with some improving and others seeing no change. Morgellons remains a medical battleground, caught between infectious disease specialists, dermatologists, and psychiatrists. Until science can prove whether it's an undiagnosed condition or a complex mind-body disorder, the people suffering from it are left with more questions than answers. Aquagenic urticaria. Allergic to water. Water keeps us alive, makes up 60% of the human body, and covers most of the planet. But for a handful of people, touching water causes an allergic reaction. This condition, known as aquagenic urticaria, is one of the rarest and most bizarre disorders in medical history. When a person with aquagenic urticaria comes into contact with water, whether from bathing, sweating, tears, or even rain, they develop intense itching, burning sensations, and painful hives within minutes. The reaction isn't caused by water itself, but by an unknown interaction between water and the skin. Some theories suggest that water dissolves skin lipids, allowing allergens or toxins to penetrate deeper. Others suspect an abnormal histamine response, where the body treats water like a harmful invader. The condition is far more common in women than men, though the reason remains unclear. Hormonal differences may play a role, as some cases worsen after puberty or during pregnancy. In men, the disorder is often less severe, possibly due to thicker skin or differences in sweat composition. There is no cure, and treatment options are limited. Antihistamines sometimes reduce symptoms, but for severe cases, patients must minimize water exposure, making basic activities like showering or exercise a challenge. Some rely on barrier creams or even wear protective clothing indoors to prevent reactions from sweat. Despite being extremely rare, aquagenic urticaria has been documented worldwide, yet no scientist has pinpointed the exact cause. Until more research is done, those affected are left navigating life without one of the most essential substances on Earth: spontaneous human combustion. A person is found reduced to ashes, their body burned beyond recognition, yet the surrounding furniture and objects remain untouched. No fire accelerants, no electrical faults, just a pile of human remains with no clear explanation. This is the mystery of spontaneous human combustion, SHC, a phenomenon that has fascinated and terrified people for centuries. SHC refers to cases where a person allegedly bursts into flames without any external ignition source. Victims are often found alone, their bodies almost completely incinerated, with limbs or extremities sometimes left untouched. The most baffling detail? The fires don't spread. A body burns to ashes, but nearby objects, beds, chairs, walls, show minimal damage. Scientists have long dismissed SHC as a myth, but the human body doesn't normally burn this way. A corpse requires extremely high temperatures, around 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, for complete incineration, something that usually only happens in crematoriums. House fires don't burn that hot, and yet, in SHC cases, entire torsos are reduced to ash. One explanation is the wick effect, where a person's clothing absorbs body fat, turning them into a slow-burning human candle. If an external flame, like a cigarette or fireplace ember, ignites clothing, the fat melts and fuels a prolonged fire. But even this doesn't fully explain why fires stay localized instead of spreading like a normal blaze. Another theory suggests that rare metabolic conditions or chemical imbalances could lead to internal ignition. Some researchers propose that excessive acetone production, a flammable compound in the body, might cause an individual to become more flammable. However, no experiment has ever successfully demonstrated how this could lead to full-body combustion. SHC cases have been recorded worldwide, yet none have been scientifically proven. The lack of surviving witnesses and the bizarre conditions of the remains leave more questions than answers. Until forensic science can explain why some bodies burn while their surroundings remain untouched, SHC will remain one of medicine's strangest unsolved mysteries. The Sleeping Beauty Syndrome. Most people wish they could sleep more, but for those with Klein-Levin syndrome, KLS, sleeping too much becomes a medical nightmare. This rare neurological disorder causes episodes of extreme sleep, where individuals sleep 15 to 20 hours a day for weeks or even months at a time. During an episode, waking up feels nearly impossible. When KLS patients do manage to get out of bed, they often experience severe confusion, memory loss, and altered perception of reality. Some become emotionally detached, while others engage in childlike behavior, compulsive eating, or even hallucinations. It's as if their brain is stuck in a fog, preventing them from functioning normally. The exact cause of KLS remains unknown, but scientists suspect it's linked to abnormal activity in the hypothalamus and thalamus, the brain regions that regulate sleep and consciousness. Some cases appear after infections or fevers, suggesting that an autoimmune response might be involved. Others may be triggered by stress or hormonal changes. KLS affects teenage boys at much higher rates than girls, but when women develop the condition, their episodes tend to last longer and occur more frequently over a lifetime. Hormones may influence symptom severity, with some women reporting worsened episodes during menstruation or pregnancy. There is no cure for KLS. Treatment mainly focuses on managing symptoms, but medications like stimulants or mood stabilizers offer limited success. The disorder is unpredictable. Episodes can disappear for years, only to return without warning. For those affected, life is a cycle of lost time, missed opportunities, and waiting for their brain to wake up.